Hi, I'm Sonali Karnick. This is Our Montreal. Today on the show, we hear from a yoga teacher whose new book offers tips on using the practice on and off the yoga mat. While many people still struggle with packed schedules and busy lives, more and more of us are making time for yoga. The most recent StatsCan numbers report that nearly 1.5 million Canadians participate in the practice each year. And according to Yoga Journal magazine, people across North America spend more than $10 billion annually on classes and equipment. But my next guest feels that the commercial success of yoga as an exercise has eclipsed its deeper and more significant benefits. Her new book, Evolving Your Yoga, 10 Principles for Enlightened Practice, talks about how to find more purpose and meaning in our lives through yoga. Barrie Risman has been teaching yoga in Canada and the U.S. for more than 20 years. She's the creator of an online practice and study community called The Skillful Yogi. And she came up from her home in Sutton to join us in studio this week. Hi, Barrie.
Hi.
So after all this time teaching yoga, you're now publishing a book on it. What made you want to write about the practice?
One thing I've seen in all my years of teaching is that all those many people that you just spoke about who are practicing yoga have been doing the physical practice, the postural practice for some time. And there are many people, I think, that are really ready to take the benefits of yoga off the mat and into their lives. And so this book is a guide on how to do that.
Well, one of your students actually wrote the foreword, and she happens to be Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Yeah, so Sophie is a former student. She's someone that learned yoga from me for several years. And I think she's really someone that understands the power of yoga to be a tool to bring positive change in one's life. And so I was honored to have her contribute the foreword to the book.
Well, you know, there's so many trends in yoga that incorporate kind of another physical fitness or another physical practice into it, and it kind of strays away from the original purpose. And there's so many trends that do that right now. But we know that yoga offers just more than fitness or more than agility. So what more can people get from the practice?
Yes, absolutely. I think that everything that we do in practice, no matter what trend it is, if it's considered yoga and if it's taught in the context of yoga, it can provide us tools for actually creating positive change and a more purposeful, more conscious way of operating in our lives. And I think there's very simple ways we can approach whatever style of yoga we love to practice with that understanding to get just more out of what we do.
So, and I think people must ask you this a lot. Like, so how does it do that? How can me just doing different poses and breathing help me find that purpose?
Right. So I talk about a lot of these ways in the book, but a couple of examples are just simply being aware of your posture. Even if you never walk into a yoga class, if I just ask you right now, how close are your shoulders to your ears? Is your spine elongating? Where is your head in relation to your neck? Just simply being aware of how we hold ourselves in space, which is something that yoga postures teach us and engender through the mindful awareness of movement, bringing that understanding into our lives can be a game changer in how we work at our desks, how we stand in line, just how we function. And in yoga, we understand, of course, that the body and mind have an intimate correlation. So what happens in one affects the other. So just by turning to our posture and becoming more aware and relaxed in our bodies, we can affect our state.
So, you go into the benefits of yoga in all its forms and how people can do that at home with no more minimal equipment. But you don't go into the origins of yoga necessarily in sort of Hinduism and Buddhism. Why did you choose to kind of not discuss that?
Right. Well, I think the book is grounded in the fundamental principles and the vision of yoga. So I did want to make that very clear for the readers. However, I also think that sometimes the philosophy or the teachings of yoga can feel a little bit disconnected from our lives. So I really wanted to present the understandings and the principle which yoga is based on in a way that is immediately accessible and that also demonstrates what I consider to be that they're extremely relevant to our everyday lives. So I really wanted to offer them in a way that people could take them right into their experience experience while still honoring the foundations of where those understandings come from.
I feel like that's a whole other book, looking at the origins of yoga anyway, and sort of how it started as a spiritual practice in any case.
Right.
And the book also doesn't, I mean, you know, if you look at all the trendy videos out there, people using goats to do yoga and, you know, Bikram yoga, hot yoga, all those kinds of things. There's so many peripheral things you can use to practice yoga, but yours, you kept it very simple in the book with illustrations and just different really simple poses. What did you want to show people?
Well, I want to say first that I think any way that brings people to yoga can be really beneficial. So often we'll start wanting to get a workout or just feel better and stronger in our bodies. And that's great, because often what happens is we do experience those benefits, but then we're able to go a little bit deeper and extract some of the deeper, more lasting benefits of the practice. But really what I wanted to offer people were ways to take whatever style you love to practice and make it into a path that can nourish your own self-development, your personal growth, kind of give ways into that, and to just kind of reclaim the spirit of yoga, right? Because I think a lot of these trends, it's interesting, it can create a dynamic where we're kind of looking out for the next thing, which is what we're doing in every other area of our lives often. So sometimes those trends can kind of externalize the practice, right? We're shown, and even in the marketing of yoga, right? We're sold an image of what a yogic lifestyle is or what a yoga body should be. And so it creates a dynamic where the practice can work against us in exactly the same way it should be working for us. So part of the intention for this book is to offer people easy, simple ways to reclaim the true spirit of yoga so they can use it as a path to nourish themselves and live more purposeful lives.
I remember meeting a pundit at the temple who said, do you have a body? Then you have a yoga body.
Right. Are you breathing?
Yeah.
You can do yoga.
You can do yoga.
Right. Do you have a mind? Right. You can do yoga.
That's exactly it. But I mean, you really discovered the deeper meaning to it yourself a long time ago. How did that start?
I started yoga in my early 20s. I was working in an office in Midtown Manhattan, and I was searching at that time. I didn't quite know that I was seeking, but I was definitely looking around at people who were very successful in their outer lives and yet were ultimately dissatisfied and kind of always looking for something to fulfill them. And I remember thinking, you know, there's got to be more to life than this. And so I was seeking, and when I found yoga, it was a great practice, not just for my body, but to clear my mind and to bring me back to myself in a really loving, compassionate way.
I think in New York, you probably would need that just to have that quiet around
Absolutely,
you.
absolutely.
And, you know, how realistic is that kind of transformation for other people, too, who might be trying this? Like, do you find that, can you do that after just 2 weeks of doing yoga? How long does it take people to sort of to discover that, really, and to get into that part of yoga?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think it takes long to discover the power of yoga. You know, I think, again, it depends on how we approach the practice. So hopefully my book can give people some understandings to get a lot more out of the practice than just the physical workout right off the bat. The key thing in yoga is that it is a practice, which means the way yoga works is by that it happens over time, which again is maybe not a great selling point in the marketplace, that this is not a quick fix, right? You're going to feel the benefits immediately, but then it's going to be really the repeated practice coming back to it in a loving, self-accepting way, hopefully, that you'll be able to expand those benefits and make them the real fix that happens over time.
Well, I mean, you have, in the book, you have 10 approaches to help people sort of take their experience of yoga beyond exercise. So what are some examples of things we can try outside of the yoga class or in a regular class where we can feel those benefits?
Yeah. So I do think definitely becoming aware of one's posture, right? Taking that time to just cultivate that postural awareness will expand the benefits of yoga in one's life. I think the breath is an amazing tool that, you know, obviously we're all breathing all the time, but to understand, again, that the breath and the mind have this intimate connection in yoga. So what happens in one affects the other. So just as when you're nervous or anxious, your breathing will tend to get shallow and irregular, in the same way we can work with the breath to calm the mind. And in yoga, we learn specific ways to do this. However, simply just becoming aware of your breath, it brings you present, right? So you can't be worrying about what's coming next or what happened before. It creates a pause where you can actually regroup in a stressful situation and then perhaps create more possibility in how you respond to that situation. So just by becoming aware of your breath, I think is a great and powerful tool that we all have with us all the time.
Well, I think it's a good lesson for a lot of people to learn dealing with the stresses that we have every day now more and more. Thank you so much for joining me, Barrie.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Barrie Risman is a Quebec yoga educator with more than 20 years experience. Her new book is Evolving Your Yoga, 10 Principles for Enlightened Practice. She's touring the province this month, and you can find details on her website.